This is the Moto G72, a mid-ranger that's surprisingly lightweight for its size. This phone has a lot of nice features too, but also some limitations which you'd expect at this price range. I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's see what the Moto G72 is all about in our full review. The Moto G72 has plenty to offer for the class: a large 120Hz OLED, stereo speakers, a big battery, and a 108 megapixel main camera. But despite all of that, it's incredibly light, weighing in at just 166 grams. And because it's a full-sized rather than a compact phone, it feels even lighter. The G72 is made of plastic, both the back and the frame. The finish isn't flashy, but it's elegant, and the two-tone camera bump is a nice accent. Many Moto phones have some unofficial splash proofing, but the G72 has an official IP52 rating. On the front is a 6.6-inch OLED display with a 1080p resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. It's super bright. We measured a maximum of 500 nits with the manual brightness slider, but this can boost to over 1000 nits in auto mode. That's something you'd expect more from a flagship phone. The Moto G72's display is quite contrasty, being an OLED, and the color reproduction can be fairly accurate. There's support for 10-bit color too, but there's no claim of HDR video support. When it comes to refresh rate, the 120Hz mode forces 120 across most functions, including games, and the auto mode can dial down to as low as 60Hz when you're idling to save energy. For audio, the G72 has a standard headphone jack as well as stereo speakers. The speakers are decent, loudness is good, and the sound quality is clean, with nice vocals but not much bass. You can wake up and unlock the Moto G72 with an under-display fingerprint reader. And the phone comes with 128 gigs of storage on board, and that is expandable through microSD. When it comes to software features, you get the typical suite you'd expect from a Moto phone. The G72 runs a mostly stock Android 12 with a few proprietary Moto features on top. You can find these features organized conveniently within the Moto app. These include personalization options, which let you customize the looks of your interface. There's also a bunch of Moto gesture shortcuts for navigation purposes. Overall, it's quite similar to what you'd find on other Moto phones, but here you don't get support for expanded connectivity through Ready 4. Powering the Moto G72 is a decidedly mid-tier chipset. It's a Mediatek Helio G99 built upon a 6nm process. While it is able to provide a solid enough user experience, the benchmark scores here are nothing to get excited about. Don't expect stellar gaming performance here, and there's no support for 5G connectivity or 4K video capture. Like I mentioned earlier, the Moto G72 has a larger battery than you'd expect considering how light it is. It has a 5000 mAh power pack, and was able to earn an endurance rating of 121 hours in our battery life tests. For charging, the phone comes with a 33-watt adapter, and it does a decent job, charging the G72 from 0 to 53% in half an hour. Now we've made it to the cameras. On the back you'll find a 108 megapixel main cam, an 8 megapixel ultra-wide cam, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. Photos from the main cam come out at 12 megapixels by default. They're okay in quality, but nothing too special. The contrast and dynamic range are good. The colors are well saturated, but the white balance trends toward bluish. And the detail level is just okay, with a bit of a grainy look. Portrait photos from the main cam are decent, with competent edge detection. Just watch out for backlit situations, as you can end up with blown highlights. The ultra-wide cam's 8 megapixel photos are okay for the class. If there's plenty of light, the detail level is alright. Though in less than ideal conditions, things can look a bit mushy. There's visible noise, and the dynamic range is on the narrow side, with blown highlights from time to time. The 2 megapixel macro cam captures basic close-up photos with not a lot to offer in terms of quality. At least the colors are a bit lively. In low light conditions, the Moto G72 will automatically apply its night mode processing, called night vision, to its photos. The exposure isn't as bright as you might find on other night modes. Some scenes even look underexposed. The colors are on point though. You can toggle on a dedicated night vision mode as well. These shots have a longer capture time, but you get finer textures and sharper detail. There's also the option to turn off the night mode. The major difference here is that you get some blown highlights. The ultra-wide cam also supports auto night vision, though there's not much difference with it turned on or off. The photos are decently well exposed, and there's good color saturation. Not much detail to speak of though. Selfies are taken with the 16 megapixel front-facing cam, but they come out at 4 megapixels, regardless of if you choose the wider field of view or the more cropped-in one. Overall, the dynamic range is good and the colors are likable, but there isn't a ton of detail. The Moto G72 can record video with its main cam in up to 1080p resolution at 60 fps. The quality is decent, with a good detail level for 1080p, but the dynamic range is limited and the colors are a bit dull. The ultra-wide can shoot 1080p video at 30 fps, and is sharp enough, but the dynamic range is again limited, and the color rendition is excessively warm and saturated. Electronic stabilization does a decent job in smoothing out your footage, but we did notice some focus hunting in clips from the main camera. So that's the Moto G72. It's a pretty solid mid-ranger that provides a nice multimedia experience thanks to its large OLED screen, headphone jack, and stereo speakers. There's a large battery and pretty fast charging, and the lightweight build helps it to stand out from the crowd. Probably the biggest shortcoming is the chipset. It's a mediocre one even for a mid-ranger, but if that doesn't bother you, then the Moto G72 is worth a recommendation. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to check out some alternatives to the Moto G72, you can start with the Samsung Galaxy A33. Another option is the Realme 10. Let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.